It's a packed week for video game releases, but the two biggest stars are undoubtedly Team Asobi's Astrobot and Saber Interactive's Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. While the former has earned its critical accolades ahead of launch and is currently the best-rated game of 2024, the latter is no slouch. It's reportedly the biggest launch for the publisher Focus Home Interactive on Steam by a wide margin. Over 134,000 peak concurrent players at the moment, and that's only with early access. The numbers could, and definitely will, go even higher once it releases worldwide on September 9th.
The numbers are endless. We will see about that. I hope you're keeping score, brother.
Critics have also showed praise on the third-person shooter for many reasons, whether it's the presentation and gorgeous visuals or the attention to detail. There are some nitpicks here and there, but everyone can universally agree on one thing: the combat is amazing. It's no shock to those who played the original Space Marine. Despite inviting comparisons to Gears of War, thanks in no small part to similarities between the Space Marines and Gears, it's established a unique loop of brutally entertaining action. The rhythm of the melee combat and third-person shooting felt just right, but Space Marine 2 goes even further beyond. Heck, it may even surpass the likes of Gears of War. The campaign wastes no time getting straight into the action, with Dimitri and Titus and the Death Watch squad landing on Kadaku to deploy a virus bomb and eradicate the Tyranids. Things quickly go awry as the Tyranids assail their dropships, separating them. You gain control of a solitary Titus shortly after, and the movement immediately makes an impression.
We are preparing an airstrike. Can you hold the enemy in place until it hits?
Consider it done.
While the Gears of War series has had some chunky movement, Space Marine 2's protagonist appropriately feels like a hulking tank. It's more than just the weight or size of the armor, the sheer amount of power that's pushing it forward, allowing some mobility, is also noteworthy. Titus breaking out in sprint thus feels natural, like a perfect union of speed and power. Nailing it wouldn't have been easy, but it was even more challenging for the developer to animate it. As CCO Tim Willits told PC Gamer, the team focused on the walking and the running and stopping of the Space Marines, with tons of iterations throughout. Of course, the result is an overwhelming unit that shouldn't move like it does, and when it does, you can't take your eyes off it. It becomes even more apparent when cutting through enemies. Watching Hormagaunts erupt into blood splatter with the chainsaw's light attacks is satisfying, right down to hearing the weapon revving up. The Power Sword gives it some competition, especially when tearing through enemies quickly or opting for wider swings against Tyranid warriors. But you also have the Thunder Hammer, swinging slowly but decisively before slamming down with a powerful concussive attack, with the Thunder Strike sound at the end accentuating its destructiveness. Of course, it's not just the melee weapons. The firearms are equally responsive and hefty. Take the Heavy Bolter. It slightly slows you down while firing, but the feedback is immensely satisfying thanks to the large caliber ammunition. Staring down an impeding horde and unleashing a terrifying hail as it quickly spins up is one of the most satisfying feelings. Then you have the Melta Rifle, a more close-range weapon which fires a powerful burst that rips through almost anything, if not leaving it significantly weakened. Each weapon has the same effect as controlling a Space Marine, of overwhelming power, yet still grounded in reality. It's believable and yet still out of this world. The weapons in Gears also have unique feelings, but instead of outright aggression and leaping into the fray, buoyed by the ever-mounting death count, they're built for tactics, for navigating through cover and outflanking enemies, which is intense in its own right. Excellent combat is usually enough to satisfy most action game fans, but Space Marine 2 features two more things to really make it sing: enemy variety and overwhelming scenarios. Thus far, we've seen multiple imposing challenges, like Tyranid warriors who wield different weapons and necessitate more decisive maneuvers, like parrying to take down. Such encounters only add to the harrowing nature of combat. When you finally stun one and execute it with a finisher, it feels satisfying and earned, especially since you regenerate some armor. Of course, this also feeds back into the satisfaction of the firearms. Annihilating a tougher Tyranid with a heavy bolter or stunning it with a plasma incinerator feels much better when you know how melee encounters play out. The melee combat is a stark contrast to Gears of War. The Lancer's chainsaw in Gears of War feels cathartic when scoring kills, even on the lowly wretches, but presents considerable risk against drones and grenadiers. The latter could gun you down if you're not careful, and you may even enter tense standoffs with dueling chainsaws, each side pressing for the advantage. By comparison, Space Marine 2's CQC fights can range from graceful dances to the death to frenetic clusters where you're swinging for dear life and slowly yet surely overcoming the odds. The Rubric Marines are also worth noting for the sheer terror of facing foes with the same tools as the Ultramarines. I won't delve too much into spoilers, but suffice it to say that some of the threats you'll encounter through the campaign are awe-inspiring. The same goes for the combat scenarios. You venture through enormous reaches of Avarax, facing hordes of Tyranids in close-quarter scenarios, ripping, tearing, and smashing each one as they seemingly multiply. You're placed in scenarios where entire swarms descend upon your group, scurrying about by the hundreds as you desperately try to fight back. Willits has talked about the game's AI director to WCCF Tech and how, despite being the ultimate killing machine, you start to feel overwhelmed and you're fighting and then you just finally make it through with barely enough armor left to survive. But you've done it, and that's all due to this very advanced AI director, which helps kind of orchestrate those battles. Even if the objectives and level layouts seem straightforward on the surface, these moments lend tension and make them feel like more than just simple skirmishes. It feels like you're part of an all-out war against an overwhelming enemy. Powerful, yet grounded. The scale of several missions also helps in this regard, whether you're seeing the Tyranids swarming through the skies in the distance or watching a certain combat walker tearing through the ranks like it's nothing. Before Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 launched, I was skeptical when Willits proclaimed it would be the best action game of the year. Yet, here we are. There are still so many things to dissect about the game, from its operations and replay value to Eternal War PvP, and its overall feel and balancing. As Saber Interactive adds more content, those discussions will probably reemerge over time. However, right out of the gate, it's hard to see any other action title this year topping it. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is simply phenomenal, and having a campaign that makes you feel like a Space Marine seeking redemption whilst relentlessly stomping hordes of enemies with its combat is just the icing on top. Hey, did you know that we at GamingBolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.